Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy February, everyone. Happy Monday, and welcome to Richard Skipper Celebrates. For those of you who have been here before, thanks for coming back. And for those of you who are here for the first time, I can't even get it out, for the first time, my show is about celebrating artists and their body of worth. What makes a great artist? How did they get from point A to point B and beyond? Well, today we have a true artist, Bryan Batt. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the first time that I saw Bryan on stage was 1987 in Starlight Express. And then there was Cats and Joseph and Sunset, and the list goes on and on and on. Some new generations know him from Mad Men and so many great television appearances and film work as well. We're going to talk about all of that today. But before we start, let's just take a quick look back, and then you'll meet Bryan Batt on the other side.
He was drunk, and he cornered me in the editing room, and I backed him off. I told him I was married, and he was embarrassed, and he left. You people. I didn't do anything but turn him down. He's a bully.
You better bet your sweet bippy, baby.
And you might want to get your hair done, daughter. Because after I take these two bozos down, every paper in the Tri-County area is going to be knocking on that door. Come in. And they can make my picture right here in front of these plaques. Whew. I'm going to meet President Carter, go to dinner with Farrah Fawcett. It's all happening too fast. Clyde, is it?
Yes, sir.
You cultivate cane previously? Willard Yawny, a plant up the bayou, celebrates his anniversary in 3 weeks' time. I'll hold out your name to him. What you earn is yours to keep.
After I lost my job, I decided I'd never live anything but my truth again. My wife took it well. I hit the road and drove as far as I could. I landed here, and I've never had a day of regret since.
The spill was a tragedy, but it is in everyone's best interest to keep American oil healthy. My fund runs a diversified energy portfolio with an emphasis on Gulf producers. I know you've leaned left on energy in the past, but I'm looking to back a horse that will support our interests.
I know you're my daughter.
What?
It was the 80s. Studio 54. I got so blitzed out of my mind, I thought Faye was Andy Warhol. I contacted an agency to find you. And then I hired you as my stylist, so I could get to know you first. I wanted to make sure I wasn't intruding.
Really? I've been waiting years for you to intrude.
You may not be technically breaking the rules today, Ms. Merriweather, but Rule 4.26 clearly states that we reserve the right to add a decimal point to the rule book.
You wouldn't.
Oh, wouldn't I?
I'm afraid you have the wrong idea.
Then what am I doing here?
I saw something in you.
What was that?
Desperation. I have an off-the-books job that recently came available. You interested?
My favorite line in all of that is, it was the 80s. It was studio.
No, that was Uncle Betty. That's how I met Michael Urie and we became friends. It's, looking back at all that stuff, I really haven't seen it like since we did it or when it aired. It's interesting. It's fun to see all that stuff. The other night I was channel surfing, and it's the first time it popped up on. It was actually last night. Amazon Prime was Jeffrey, a movie I did many years ago, and literally I couldn't sleep, so I started watching it, going, oh my God, I haven't seen it in 20 years, and it's really hard to see yourself. It really is hard to watch. For me, it's hard to watch myself. It just makes me crazy because all I see are the flaws. And right after I watched it, I got this Facebook message from John Vincent Leggio, who I did Cats with years ago. And actually, I was in Cats when I was cast in the play of Jeffrey. You know, because at my callback, Paul Rudnick actually said, "Are you really in Cats?" And I said, "Yeah, now and forever." And it stuck because originally the character was a dancer in Grand Hotel, so he rewrote it. But well, thanks for playing that. That was really, really fun.
No, well, I want to ask you, is it difficult for you to look back, or are you the type of person who's always looking forward?
I'm always looking forward, but it is fun to take a glance back, especially, because you don't, especially with Broadway and off Broadway, you really don't have that archived in the way that, Peter Lawrence, who was the PSM of Sunset Boulevard, I did the movie of Jeffrey, and it was coming out right when I was doing Sunset, and he said, the thing about film is it's there forever. It is out there, and that's it. And, every night on Broadway or in a play is a different performance. But, your film is, and TV, it's out there forever, and you're also at the mercy of the editor. So always be kind to the editor.
Well, I'll tell you something very funny about that movie. When the movie came out, Jeffrey, I had several people that came up to me to say that they loved me in the movie, or they saw me in the movie. And I said, I'm not in the movie. They said, yes, you are. And I said, no, I'm not in the movie. So I go to see the movie. And as you remember, there's the gay pride parade. And the camera comes in and it pounds right in on me and my now husband, Dan, at the gay pride parade.
Oh, my God. Oh, that's so great.
But some people saw me in that moment and, jumped out. I want to, before we do look back, I want to talk about where we are now. Today marks 326 days since our theaters shut down.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult. And I want to ask you, how are you dealing with all of this? How are you doing really in the midst of this crazy world we're in?
To be honest, it's one day at a time. It's also a lesson. I've learned a lesson in appreciation of what we have, and I, really don't take it for granted. Don't take sitting in a Broadway house, seeing a Broadway show or an off-Broadway show or a regional theater. In fact, I was in rehearsal for a play in New York when we were shut down. We were doing a final run through and about to go to Hartford stage to try out a play called The King's Speech, based on written by the same author that wrote the movie. And I was playing pretty much one of the best roles I've ever had the privilege of playing, Lionel Logue, the speech therapist. And it was just one of these things where we all clicked, one of those casts where we, at least the three leads, the people that we really just, I still talk to the woman that played my wife, Elizabeth Lado. We talk all the time. And we're hoping it'll happen again because it's a beautiful play about honor and dignity and doing the right thing and overcoming momentous handicaps. And also, we just elected a wonderful president who overcame a speech impediment. So there's a correlation there. So hopefully, it'll come out. But I've learned also, I've tried to do little things here and there, and it's just not the same, I've auditioned for some films and television things, and they're far and few in between. But I've worked on a play that I'm writing that hopefully will be tried out down here. And then we did a workshop in New York before all this called Dear Mr. Williams.
I want to talk about that. I've been reading about this. Yes.
I've been working on that. And, we decorated a room in the house. I'm in New Orleans. I live. One good thing that kept me kind of sane during this is our business, my husband and I, and our partner, Haley. Yes, Tom and I have a Hazelnut, a home furnishings and gift shop in New Orleans. And, one thing, luckily for us, is that, after the initial lockdown, we were able to open, and very safely, we've been able to continue to have service where everyone has to come in masks. And now we're back to 2.0, which is pretty good for I'm very proud, most of New Orleans. Don't go to Bourbon Street. But, we found over this period that people are nesting at home more. Of course, they have to. They're entertaining. They want to decorate their tables and their home even more. They're making their cocoon more appealing, So that's been good for us, and we've been able to keep most of our employees working.
That's great.
and it's that. But we do we do what we can. I've done tons of fundraisers, like we all are asked. When I first opened on Broadway, it was right in the middle of the AIDS epidemic, and we just did what we could do. We raised, we leapt to the occasion, and I think if everybody could just do a little bit, whatever they can do. After Katrina down here, I had a lot of friends that were building houses and working with Habitat for Humanity, and
were you in New Orleans when Katrina happened, or did you go back after Katrina?
After we were actually on vacation and could not get back. And they wouldn't let us back in. We had to get my mother out. It was crazy. It's in the first chapter of my book. But we were one of the first stores on Magazine to reopen after Katrina. It's kind of a cute story, my husband, because when we opened up the shop in 2003, it was a culture shock for him. New Orleans is a very different place. It's much slower and easier, and everybody knows it.
Is he from New York?
He's from Pennsylvania. He's from Moscow, Pennsylvania. And we've been together 32 years. We're two old socks.
Well, my husband and I have been together 32 years. And you and I have the same wedding song.
Yeah, really?
What a Wonderful World.
What a Wonderful World, yeah. Yeah, that and we had that, and I think they came down to Till There Was You. Had to have a little Broadway in there.
Yeah.
But with a little jazz combo. But it was kind of difficult, a culture shock for him. Now, we had been coming down here, so there was this little bit of acclimation. And the deal was, once we opened the shop, I could go back and forth to do projects, which after 6 months I did. I did the revival of La Cage. I was doing, this other play, things here and there. I was still going back. We kept the place in New York. And so when Katrina happened, it was kind of like, I said, okay, here's your out. This is unprecedented, this kind of destruction. But if we want to pull up and go back to New York, I understand it, because I'm not giving up now. Not when they need us. I was like, that's what I want to hear. That's the man I love, because he's very quiet. I mean, he's very.
Well, I want to ask you about this. I mean, it's funny. Right after the pandemic hit, I think it was 51 days into this, there was an article, I think it was on page 6 of the Post, but it was all over the internet. There was a power gay couple, 2 actors, who said after 51 days they couldn't take it anymore. So what's the secret for you and Tom in terms of how you're balancing everything out? Obviously, you're spending more time together than you possibly could have ever imagined spending together. So what's the secret for the two of you?
Well, the one thing is, you have to have a foundation in a relationship. And you keep on, when the times get tough, just keep a little list. Remind yourself of the things you loved them for in the beginning, because they're still there. He is one of the funniest people, and he's so clever. And I'll see, we know each other, so it's like I see the moods coming, or he sees mine. I'm getting frustrated, and we try to help each other through it. We also have 2. We had 1 dog at the time. Now we have 2. We have a rescue Yorkie, and named Pip. And a couple of months ago, we got another rescue, and she's Daisy, and she's part Dachshund and part Rat Terrier. But Tom thinks she's part Rat Bastard, and I think she's part Rat Terrorist. Yeah, I think she's really part Rat Terrorist. She's a handful. The good thing is our home. I love our home. I mean, we have a wonderful little home here. It's just 2,000 square feet. Now, for New York, that's a mansion. Down here, it's really not. But we can get away from each other, and unlike New York, where you're crowded and packed in everywhere, we can go walk around the block. We can go to the park. We can do things, that we can get away from each other. But, it's also, we choose to be together, and I do enjoy, but we did, there's a couple all those, what do you call it? Oh God, Groundhog's Day moments. It's like, did you take out the pork chops? The pork chops today. What's out? I mean, it became, we'd take out the meat and grill. And the funny thing is, when this all happened, the initial thing, my niece was on spring break, and she's 21, and she was a little debutante last year. It's a whole thing in New Orleans. Don't get me started. And so she had to. She was on skiing or something with some friends, and had to go through all these airports to get back here. And my brother and sister-in-law, we were talking. My brother's diabetic, so he's a prime, he's compromised health, so she couldn't go there. So I'm sure that I was exposed in New York. I had to have been. I was riding the subway, practically licking the pole. It was like, ridiculous. And I would eat those, those buffets with the little plexiglass thing every day for lunch. And so I said, send her over. And so she was with us for 3 weeks. This 21-year-old, I thought, here's this little pampered pooch, and what this is going to be. We had the best time.
Oh, that's wonderful.
She didn't complain once. And I called my brother and sister-in-law, and I just said, I just have to compliment you all on this girl. And I've been there. That's one of the reasons why we did the shop. I'm like, my mom was, her, health was failing. She didn't, thank God we were here for her. And then my nieces were growing up before our very eyes, and we wanted to be part of their lives, and we are. And but we had her for 3 weeks, and not one complaint. But we had fun. Like, we had, for the 12th night of lockdown, we had we wore crowns because it was 12th night. We had wig night. We had everything. It was fun. We tried to make the most out of it. I think that's what, I don't know whether it's a New Orleans thing or an actor thing, because right now New Orleans it would be Mardi Gras. Mm-hmm. Now the 16th of February is Mardi Gras. In fact, watch. There's 2 things you can watch that I'm doing on. I think the 12th, Friday the 12th, is it? I'm hosting. It's on NOLA.com, NOLA.com, or somewhere on Facebook. Look it up. It's called Mardi Gras for All Y'all, and I'm hosting this the first night of the 3 nights. It's all encompassing all the different aspects of Mardi Gras, and there's performances and all this stuff. That's going to be fun. And then this Thursday, I'm filming a segment for Good Morning America, which will be airing on Mardi Gras Day, which is the 16th. It's going to be fun. What they're highlighting is they've decided a lot of the artists that create the floats for Mardi Gras. Now, I know that sounds like a real specific little thing, niche, and it probably is, but I don't know if everyone understands. Mardi Gras starts on 12th night. It starts on Epiphany, and the balls and parties start, and then 2 weeks solid up until Ash Wednesday. There are parades every day and almost every night, sometimes 3 and 4 a night. Each parade has at least about 25 plus floats. So that's a lot. There's dozens of crews. And there are these artists that make all the paper mache and paint them, and they're completely out of work. So some people got together and decided they had a crew of house floats, and people can hire the artists to decorate their houses as a float, or
love that idea.
Buy some of the stuff. So we have flowers all over our house, these Mardi Gras flowers. But what they're going to do is they're printing a map, and people are going to walk around the neighborhoods or drive, and we're going to throw things from our balcony. But it's like, what else can you do? You either can sit and cry your eyes out and say, or you can do something. You can make an effort. And I assure you, I felt so much better when we were putting up our decorations. So many people came by just to say, oh my God, thank you. It's so beautiful. It just made me happy. It made me smile. Mm-hmm. As a performer and as an actor, if I make people smile and if I make people feel something, my job's done.
Amen. That's great.
And I'm just babbling. Please, you
talk. No. I'm loving every bit of this. I do want to. I'm going to post a picture here that you posted a few days ago on Facebook, and I grabbed it because I love this kid. And I want to know about this kid. How old were you when that picture was taken?
I think I was 8. I was 7 or 8. It was on Olin Mills. Mom took me to the mall. I had a very wonderful relationship with my mother. I had a really wonderful
and you wrote a book about your relationship with your mom.
Yes, She Ain't Heavy, She's My Mother.
Yes.
In fact, Whoopi Goldberg loved it, and I was on The View, and some other people loved it. But it is. I was very fortunate that way. A while back, I was having, sometimes you go through phases in life, and I was kind of down about something, or and I would not panic attacks, but anxiety, stuff like that. And I try not to take medication, but sometimes you need it. Like right now, I'm nursing a knee replacement, and I just took my Percocet, so I'm fine. But the person I was talking to said, find a picture of yourself when you were just, all you knew was joy, or it was a happy time, and you have it, put it on your phone and have it access at any time. And also put a song or several songs on there that no matter what, it cheers you up or makes you feel happy. And it works. It
It
works.
does work. I mean, is there a particular song that takes you back to the 8-year-old Bryan Batt?
Well, don't laugh, but Sugar Sugar by the Archies.
Mhm.
And
I'm not laughing.
there's so many. Build Me Up Buttercup. There's some of those just bubblegum, silly, and then, oh God, there's so many. And all through my life, Tom cracks up because I have such a diverse love of music. I was actually in a new wave band in high school and college while doing musical theater, which was just so bizarre. But I think, like I was saying earlier, you have to be proactive. I'm not one to sit back and wallow. I'm a solution-oriented kind of guy, and if I'm going to try every avenue to fix it. Maybe sometimes that's a little much. Sometimes I also have this, Pollyanna thing where everything can be tied up in a pretty bow, and I enjoy that too.
When I was preparing for this, and I've got to get the book because I've been reading about your mom, Gail, and I picture.
I'll send you one.
Well, thank you. I appreciate. I picture your mom as Mame Dennis, and just and her outlook on life, and tell us about the childhood growing up in your home, the kind of music you were listening to, and your first exposure to the arts and entertainment, and how that created a seed within you.
Well, it's very interesting. My paternal grandfather, my father's father, in 1928 opened an amusement park, a very beautiful on Lake Pontchartrain. Created a beach. There's another book I wrote called Pontchartrain Beach, A Family Affair, which is about that, and also about that era of amusement parks. It closed in 1983, and it became, in its heyday, the preeminent amusement park in the Gulf South. This is before the theme parks and all that stuff.
I grew up in an amusement park in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Well,
So I know. Yes.
And the funny thing is, some people think, oh, it's not backstage at a Scooby-Doo episode. This was very high end. It was beautiful. It was beloved by the city. I mean, I have the poster when Elvis Presley played there. I mean, it's such a history. So I grew up with that history and that as my playground, actually, and I wanted to go in that business. On my mother's side, my grandmother was like the dance maven of New Orleans. She had all these dancing schools and was a highly successful dancing teacher. So I think I got it from both sides. And I was the only one in the family that really, the genes kind of went zap, and that was it.
Your mom was also an actress.
She was a dancer. She was a dance major and a speech major at Newcomb. But she was so shy and very, 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 let's put it this way. She was a very 50s young lady. I mean, very old school. I remember her telling me that she wanted to be an actress, but she took one of the classes and everybody was changing clothes in the same room, and she just couldn't do that. Okay, but what was great about her is that she was so supportive that she wanted me to try everything, but there were no restrictions. There were the rules and regulations, and I learned how to be a good person from her and my father. They were very different. My father was this big, burly, Scotch drinking, manly man, and she was this feminine, lacy, just whirling dervish of Chanel No. 5. It was just, she was very fun, but grounded. She's one of those steel magnolias that, to the core, it wasn't put on. You see them nowadays, all these women nowadays, and it's fake. It's a put on. She's got a big accent, but it was this. But she was, to the core. I'll never forget when she had lung cancer, and it was very, very difficult surgery. And we were waiting, very, very upset. And the nurse came out. The doctor said, the next couple of hours are going to be very telling because your mother's on a ventilator. And if we have to get her off of that within 12 hours or complications, blah, blah, blah. So they said, well, can we see her? So as we went back, another nurse is taking us, my brother and myself back. She goes, well, you got one tough mom. And I said, well, we know. And she goes, no. She's off the ventilator. And the first thing my mom, says, I love you boys, and blah, blah, blah. She goes, but could you hand me my lipstick? No, And she wants to make sure that she has her lipstick and, she's done. Priorities.
God bless her. Have you? Did you keep journals growing up, or
No, I wish I did.
was it just memories?
Yeah, they came back. The impetus for the book was it was around when we were doing Jeffrey. Tom and I were visiting Paul Rudnick and his partner, Dr. John, on Fire Island. They had this really great house all the way at the end of Fire Island. And Richie Jackson and B.D. Wong were together at the time. And there was a dinner party, just the six of us. And I don't know what happened. Maybe it was a combination of, cocktail or whatever. And these memories started. We were talking about childhood memories. And the memory of this wonderful memory of I was sent to a child psychologist because I didn't like sports. And they caught me playing with my mom's hoop skirt. So they thought, something's up. So, but, not to change me, just to make sure I'm okay. That, and it all worked out great because the therapist told me the best, advice. He basically said, I remember saying my father might like me better if I was a girl. And he said, your father loves you just the way you are. He said, some people can't help how they connect with people. He said, but you're fine. Anyway, long story short, that's another chapter. But I had this whole memory of going to the child psychologist, and he had this big roll of paper, and I would pull out a big sheet of paper and draw on it. Well, I'd been pestering my mom to go see Cabaret because when we passed the movie theater, there's a big, huge 3-story cutout of Liza, in the pants and the vest and the cleavage and the bowline and the lashes and all that. And I'm just like, and my mother's like, I think it's a little too risque. And my older cousin Donna, who I just adore, she's like, Nanen. They called their parent and Nanen. It's French for godmother and godfather, so they still say that here. So she's like, Nanen, that's he's not going to get all that. He just wants to see the singing and the dance and the bossy stuff. So she finally acquiesced and let me go. So I went. I was like, in awe. And the next therapist session, I ran to the paper, pulled out a huge sheet of the paper, placed it on the ground, and laid down on it, and told my therapist, Dr. Sugar was his name. You can't make that shit up.
Sugar.
Dr. Sugar. I said, trace me. And he traced my form. And while I talked to him, I drew on my form Liza with the bowler hat, the vest, the hot pants, and the garters, and all that on my form. I was like, what more do you need to know?
No. That's great. Hey, have you thought of turning this into a screenplay or a movie?
I did. I worked with my friend David Rambo, who just wrote Pretty Little Things. Is that Pretty Little Things? Yeah, the dancer one on Netflix. And he loved the book too. And we started to adapt it for a TV series. And it just, it didn't get much traction. We might go look back at it because I had another friend who was kind of interested, but it took on its own thing. Maybe we can go back. Yeah, I did. I would love to.
I think it would be. Now, going back to Cabaret and Liza, was that a deciding moment for you in terms of wanting to pursue this as a career? There's some people who dream about it, and there are some that make it happen. You made it happen.
It was just by happenstance. I honestly, I was the most naive child and the most naive adult. I mean, I'm a certain age now, and I still sometimes Tom will go, are you gonna buy that? You just, are you kidding me? Can't you see through them? I'm like, no. I just, I didn't know you could have a career. I didn't know what that was. No one I knew was an actor. No one in our family. It was the theater was the amusement park. But I remember when I was in 3rd grade, I did in the Christmas play, I was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in the Night Before Christmas. Now you might say there's no Rudolph in the Night Before Christmas. Aha. But my teachers were so impressed with me that they added Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. My mom and grandmother choreographed a little tap number, and I had a little light up nose. And at one point, I did a headstand, did this thing with the legs. And I remember seeing the audience upside down all the kids in the lower school just going crazy, clapping. And I went, I kind of like this. I like this. So I liked it. And then I did some other plays when I was young. But then my father, they were very kind of conservative. And my father was like, I don't think I really want Bryan hanging around, all these theater people all the time. And, and then I tried sports and I was horrible. There was one kid worse than me on the basketball team. He shot at the wrong goal. He's a gynecologist now. I don't know what that means.
Oh,
but
that's great.
And then I tried soccer. And then, I have to thank there was a wonderful teacher. Her name was Karen Greenberg. And she remembered me when I was doing little shows when I was a little kid. And I was in high school. And she literally cornered me in the English hall and cornered me and basically said, when are you going to audition for my plays? You want to. You'd be good. So come on, lose the soccer ball. Come on. And, she kind of just like went, pierced, read my soul. And I did. And I was cast and I was like, that was it. That was it. I still didn't know you could do it for a living. In college, I just did what I thought I was supposed to do.
Now, where did you go to college?
I went to Tulane here, mainly because my father was very, very ill. They did not expect him to live. In high school, they expected him to die. And throughout that, I finally decided I'm just going to stay here and live at home and, do what I can to help and be around. And I just followed, my typical, of course, my doctor's calling right now. I'm gonna call them back. I followed you, do what I always do what I thought was right. So did the fraternity bit, the whole 9 yards, because that's how I grew up, thinking that's what you do. And then in college, like my sophomore year, my friend Cassie Steck, now Cassie Worley, was a wonderful actress locally. She was cast as Gypsy at Le Petit Theater, which is a wonderful little theater. It used to be community, now it's a professional theater. Right in Jackson Square. It's a wonderful 300-seat historic theater. It's just fantastic. And I went down. I didn't have a picture and resume. I had my graduation picture of me in a white dinner jacket and a carnation. And I didn't have a song to sing. I just sang, God, I can't remember what I sang. It wasn't Happy Birthday, but it was something like, it might have been Till There Was You or something by the Beatles. And I was cast, and then that was it. I was, full on theater. But still, it wasn't until like junior, like when I went to New York and started really going to New York, going, I want to do this. I remember, sitting with my mom and a cousin, like, you can do that. You can do that. I'm like, well, what does that require? I didn't go to the right schools. I didn't know about, the league schools. I didn't know about conservatories. I didn't know about any of this stuff. I kind of moved up totally green, hit the pavement, went to every audition I could.
I want to go back to that. How did you make the move to New York?
Well, it's kind of funny. Okay, it's in my play, Dear Mr. Williams. It was just added. It's a wonderful story. When I was in Godspell at the time at Le Petit Theater, and there was to be a big fundraiser for the theater, and Helen Hayes was coming to town, and they were dedicating the lobby of the theater to Helen Hayes. Well, the woman who was handling the event took gravely ill and had to back out. And I remember them coming to rehearsal saying, does anybody know anybody who could take this on? And I went, well, my mom can do stuff like that. She doesn't. So I asked her to do it. And she said, well, honey, okay, we'll see. I'll do it. So she put on this gorgeous, wonderful gala. Helen Hayes just was like, my mom was, like I said, one of these wonderful, charming, one of her best qualities that she actually listened to people and was genuinely interested in learning about their lives. She wanted to hear about what you had to say, which is a gift. Anyway, so as I blab on,
I'm loving every bit of it.
As a Helen Hayes at the performance, as they were going to the gala, my mom and my dad was okay at that time. He had these ups and downs. She said, no, wait a minute. The young man who was in the show I noticed he has the same last name as you. Are you related? And she said, well, that's our son. And he wants to be an actor. And my father, of course, was like, well, we're trying to discourage him because, my father was dead set against it, did not want me to move to New York. And Helen Hayes said, well, you should encourage him. He's very good. So over the night, Helen Hayes was talking to my mother, and Helen Hayes decided to take my mother and father to brunch the next day at Commander's Palace and convince my father to let me move to New York. And not only did she cut that deal, she also he's going to help you. The deal was he's going to help me out for the first year. If I graduate college, stay in college, graduate on time, blah, blah, blah. So that's what happened. And when I opened in my first Broadway show, Helen Hayes sent a telegram that said, "Welcome to Broadway. May you have a triumphant stay."
Wow.
It's on the wall,
I live just below Nyack, and Helen Hayes, yes, Pretty Penny.
Pretty Penny.
Did you ever go there?
Mm-hmm. When I was studying, she also set me up. She also had me audition for Circle in the Square for a summer program, which I went to. And while I was in it, Mom came to visit. We all went out to Pretty Penny to visit her.
Oh, beautiful place. Now, when you so you come to New York, did you have any survival jobs?
Oh yes. I did. I never was a waiter because I couldn't. I'm too ADD. I sprayed people at Bloomingdale's. I call it fragrance modeling. Yeah. It was, when Poison, the Yves Saint Laurent thing, ladies be the first to poison your husband. Trying to come up with little, What was great about that is it paid well. It paid very well. You dress up really nice, and they'd help you with clothes, and they would work around your. If you had an audition or something, they would work it out. So that was a good thing. That was why. Then I started teaching aerobics at Body Design by Gilda. It's not there anymore, but they had several studios across the city, and literally Mary Tyler Moore was in my class. Oh God, who else? Who else? There were so many famous people. Madeline Kahn. It was really wild. But what was great was I was getting paid to stay in shape, because I do like to eat. But those were my two main survival jobs. Then I worked.
And where did you live? I mean, your first apartment. Did you have roommates?
I bounced around subletting a lot, and then right after my father died right after I moved to New York.
I'm sorry.
And my grandmother, my father's mother, and there was a little bit she had in her estate to leave us a little bit of money because her other grandchildren were older and married, and she had given them a down payment on their house or helped them out. They had some cash, so she left that for us. And at the same time, an apartment building that I was renting went co-op. So I was one of those lucky people that got to put the down payment down and but then I had to make the rent, which was, the maintenance. I had some help. I really did. I was very grateful. And, I had some help, but there were times right when my father passed away, and I'm not ashamed of whatever. I mean, I wouldn't say we're ugly rich, but we were comfortable. It was, upper middle class, comfortable. But when my father died, I made this vow that I was never going to ask my mom for money or be a burden on her. Mm-hmm. And there were times, some of my friends, I was homeless. I wasn't on the street homeless, mm-hmm. but I did not have a roof or lease or anything over my head. And I would jump from friends' futon to futon. And they would, thank God for them. And I'm still dear friends with those gals now.
That's great.
But I just couldn't. I didn't. She had enough going on at the time.
So how did you learn the ropes? How did you find out how to find the auditions? Backstage, I'm assuming.
It was backstage, the Ross reports. And, I would go. I was equity when I moved up to New York. I had done commercials down here.
How did you get your equity card?
Well, mainly because I'd done a lot of commercials down here with SAG and AFTRA. And at that time, they had this policy that if you made a certain amount or whatever under one union, you could actually buy into the sister union. So I did that. And it was the best thing because, then it was very hard to get your equity card. But I was so green, and I didn't take no for an answer, and I didn't take it personally. Later on in life, when you've worked with certain directors or you've worked with people, these people, and you get the no, then it's like, wait a minute, I thought you liked, and there's no rhyme or reason to this business. That's why it really helped coming from an amusement park background with a roller coaster, because it's been,
That's true.
It's totally, there's no rhyme, no reason. One day you're, at the Emmys, on the SAG Awards, winning awards for Mad Men, and the next day you're, on the unemployment line, or trying to get a gig. So
what was the longest period that you've had since you've, let's say, since Starlight Express happened, that you've been without work?
Without like
present
a
time.
Broadway show, but without doing little things here and there, I would say like a long stretch was like a good 6 months or a good 8 months. I mean, little things here and there. I remember, like, we used to get a reading or a workshop, like, oh, it's going to Broadway. No, it's not. It's not. But one of the first things I ever did in New York was actually before Starlight. It was the year before Starlight. Was Too Many Girls at ELT, Equity Library Theater.
Oh my God, do I miss that theater?
Wasn't it great?
That was a great theater, and we don't have anything like that anymore.
Nothing like that. They really should. It was so. It was such a learning place for me. I learned so much doing that show.
But did you do any stock or any work outside of New York? I know that you left New Orleans, came to New York, but did you?
After I'm trying to think before. No. I did a summer lyric theater down here, but not like the old fashioned stock stuff. No, I wish I did, because that would have been.
No, with Too Many Girls, were you starting to get agents and managers?
That's how I got my agent. Yeah, that's how I got my first agent, and then that branched out and moved on. I think it's that to me, like I'm always like, will you be my agent? It's like I never think I'm like, someone send me.
So which comes first, roller skating or Starlight Express?
Okay, growing up, I loved to roller skate, and I would do it all the time. I did love it. And when we rehearsed, when I was auditioning for it, I had nerve problem, getting very nervous at auditions and stuff like that. So I'm sure I blew so many auditions. I was called back a bunch for the original cast of Les Mis. And over the years, I was kept on being called back until I finally realized they would keep on calling me back for Marius. Because at the time, I had long brown hair. I grew my hair. They told me to grow my hair out. So it was long, brown, beautiful hair. But I'm almost 6'1". And back then, I was like 185. 190, which is, a good solid. I'm kind of built like a football player. There's no way Valjean is going to pick me up dead weight and drag me through the damn sewer. And I kept on going, why am I not getting this? And like finally I realized, oh, you need to be, a good 6 or 8 inches shorter and another, 50 pounds lighter. And like I'm not cutting my feet off. But so I did love skating before. I taught myself how to do cartwheels and handstands and all that stuff, which I ended up having to do in the show. And this is pre-cleanup New York. So think about the late 80s in New York, and I would take those hills. I would go to Central Park and go skating, and I would break up crack deals. It was crazy. I just skate through it. That show was so much fun. It was just.
Oh, I saw it. I can remember it.
It is what it is.
No, it was fun. It was a fun show.
It was just a spectacle. It was spectacle to be spectacle, and I mean, it was just. I will say it was exhausting, and that's why my first injury happened with my knee. One night during my number, the song was "I Wasn't in the Right Place at the Right Time." I actually debuted on Broadway singing a rap song. What's that about?
On skates.
On skates, and I tore that wine out of my cartilage. I mean, literally, I went to it and I heard it snap, and literally, when Tom and Jerry, someone gets hit over the head and the stars start going around, that's exactly what happened. Exactly. And my knee was just like dangling, and I kind of rolled over to the side on stage and finished the number, then exited. And literally the first thing that did was take my costume off and put it on someone else. And I went to the hospital, and I was waiting, and they said, just come back in the morning. And I called my chiropractor, wonderful woman named Janice Minshew at the time. She was so wonderful. And she just touched my leg, and she goes, oh, you've torn your cartilage. She set me up with a doctor. I had surgery, and I was like, I was back in the show within 5 weeks.
Wow.
Which, the dance captain was like, "Are you sure you really shouldn't be doing this? Because you want to be able to walk when you're older." Of course, try to tell that to a 25, 26-year-old kid that always ever wanted to be on Broadway. And
what was your off time like during the show before the entry? Of course, what was your discipline for doing such a strenuous show?
I would soak every night when I'd get home, literally. You just soak in Epsom salts. I would do some gym work, but you didn't want to tire yourself out because the show was so strenuous. I mean, we were skating on a 3-story set, and to get the energy that it took,
around the theater,
literally to rehearse, we skated on the carpet of the Gershwin Theater in the lobbies because it was such resistance to build up those muscles. But the best thing about it is you could eat anything you wanted. You could eat anything, and I love it. Same with cats, But it was. I wouldn't change a thing. But it was. God, it was crazy time.
Now, I do want to ask you before we do run out of time, but I know that you moved back to New Orleans. What was the deciding factor for you going back to where you grew up?
Well, it really wasn't it was supposed to be just temporary. It was supposed to be just to open the store, and then we were going to come back. Little did we realize that when you open a business and it becomes successful, it becomes kind of like a 24-hour thing. I mean, it really is Tom's baby. I mean, I help with a lot of the design work because I love to design. You can go to the website and see it. There's some original stuff I've designed for the store, hazelnutneworleans.com. And but we were Tom had done this on Madison Avenue for several gift shops. He'd done all the windows for the ballet all over the world, and he was an actor, but he really also had great design sense. And it had been a little dream of ours to open a little shop one day. We knew we would end up retiring most probably in New Orleans because he loved it. A lot of my friends are there. All of my family was there, and it's a fun town. People want to come visit. If you move to Peoria, it's kind of hard to get people to come visit you. But if you're in New Orleans, they come. So that was like down the pike. And what happened was I was doing this workshops for Cameron McIntosh and these, of this show called Moby Dick, the musical. And foolish, like they said, literally they were saying, look, he most probably is going to, put this on. He wants to, it wasn't a hit in London, but he wants it to be a hit here, whatever. And, it all fell through. And I kind of there'd been like one disappointment after another. It's like, and I thought, maybe the universe is telling me something. Maybe we need to I need to take a break, do something else for just a nanosecond. And everything fell into place. We found the perfect location literally within like a day or two where we wanted to be. And we decided to open up the shop. And when I tell you it was the best thing I've ever done for not just personally, just developing as a human, but also as an actor. We become so myopic, and all we see is theater, and all we do is theater, and all we do is like, what are you working on? What are you doing? I got this workshop, and blah, blah, blah. It kind of, I let it define me. My resume. I remember going back to my apartment, our co-op in New York, and on the wall in the foyer were all the posters of the shows we'd been in, and I went, why is my resume my art? There are two different things. One is art and one is your resume. And I realized that there's an entire world out there, and there's other interests that I have. And, the design for the store and all that stuff, and then writing books and what's the worst can happen? You can fail and try something else. I realized I didn't want to be on my deathbed going, if only I had, tried. You got to try. It's like the main thing, open a new window, open a new door. But it freed me up as an actor. It really did. I think, when you have many disappointments and you kind of get into this spiral, they can just smell the desperation when you walk in the room. And this was just, it put everything in perspective. And I kind of did realize that if I work again in the theater, that's great. If I don't, I have other options for career. And it really, like, literally, when I went to audition for Mad Men, I turned down my first audition for Mad Men. And it's in the book, but we were thanking my godchild who saved us from Katrina and drove my mother to Houston. It's a long story.
Mm-hmm.
But we thanked her, taking her to Paris because she saved our world. And we like broke the bank. And we said, you have to thank people properly. So we took her to Paris. And my audition for Mad Men came up right in the middle of that, turned it down. Anyway, it turned out they didn't find who they wanted. I was rehearsing a play for John Epperson in New York. And they said, can you come in? And literally on my lunch break, walked in, read, left. And then they called my agent and said, well, we want him. It's when you don't care. And also, it was one of those things that, thank God, AMC was just starting with episodic television, and they trusted Matt Weiner, who is a genius. He's a genius and also what's great about him is he knows exactly what he wants, and he knows exactly how to verbalize it. So I was very fortunate for that, and that's how that happened. Because if I had to jump through the hoops and be tested and all that stuff, I've gone through that. And that's when the nerves kick in, because you're thinking like, I could make a lot of money on this show. Or this could be really big. And, then no, you can't do that. This was like, I have 20 minutes. I got to get a bite and get back to rehearse. It was a play with Nancy Opal. It was called Ma Dia that we were rehearsing.
Oh, I love Nancy so much.
Okay. One scene I'll never forget. The director was directing. He actually had to go on for me on the first preview because I was filming Mad Men. And I came back the next day, and she's like, "This Mad Men thing better be good." I ended up taking her to the premiere of season 2 because she was in LA doing Drowsy Chaperone. But anyway, she's so brilliant and so hysterical. She just came down a couple months ago visiting down here. But the director was directing a scene, and finally she said, "I think I know what I want to do in this scene. I have an idea. Let me try this." And I said, "And I have an idea too. I'm going to direct myself so I don't have to look at Nancy Opal because I will laugh my head off at everything she does." So I literally directed my back to her.
That's great. We're going to run out of time in a few minutes. I want to have you back. Will you come back?
Sure.
So much. I want to talk about Mr. Williams. I want to talk about so many things. I do want to mention last night I did a tribute for the York Theater. Yes. And your name came up. I don't know if you saw the interview because you did Golden Apple with the York Theater. And the York Theater is now, I don't know if you've heard this, but suffered severe damage.
Yes,
and because I would love, once again, to raise a little money for the York Theater. Can you, from your perspective, tell everyone why the York Theater is important to you?
Well, my experience there was quite wonderful. It wasn't in that place, what wonderful place it is now. It was all the way uptown at a church. But it was a great experience to try new material or revamp old material. And you worked with really, really great people. And it was very family-like. I felt that I was part of a family. And it was just, a little small. But what I love about it is they put on great theater. Mm-hmm. They do great things and they try different things. It's not, everything doesn't have to have a safety net. It's not corporate. In my opinion, it's not overly corporate, too corporate, because they also support artists and they support creative people, and it's a great hub and a safe place to work.
That's great. Well, I mean, this has been such a pleasure for me. I've loved your work from the moment I first saw you on stage. I'm a huge fan of yours. Well, thank you. This means a lot that you're here. I want to thank everyone for being here today. If you enjoyed the show, and I hope you did, and if you don't mind, please go to my website, richardskipper.com. Put your thoughts about the show in my guest book at richardskipper.com. That really helps to boost me in other markets. I want to let everyone know that tomorrow afternoon at 2:00, I'm celebrating the legacy of Gene Kelly. With Patricia Ward Kelly, his wonderful wife. Tomorrow is the anniversary of his passing. So we're going to really celebrate him tomorrow.
That's so great.
I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. This is your task for today. I want you to go to Amazon.com or your favorite bookseller. If you have another way of doing this, Bryan, let us know. But order She Ain't Heavy, She's My Mother. Order 2 copies yourself, and then go to your Facebook friends list, and the first thing that pops up, send them a copy as well.
Oh, it's so sweet.
I can't wait.
Send me your address. I'll send you one.
I will do that, and I can't wait to read the book. Before we end the show, I want to give you the final word. Anything that you want to say about anything that we talked about today that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to everyone right now who's listening.
Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! What else you got in that box, Pandora? You know, I feel so lucky to be able to do what I love to do, and I think, you know, we are constantly bombarded with negativity and, you know, right now the pandemic and everything, and to find some light and some positivity in this world right now, it's a little difficult, but we kind of have to be that light, because you never know how you are going to touch someone else's life. And I believe if you put out the good, it will come back to you. I do believe that. I learned from a master, my mother, who would do these random acts of kindness. I mean, I think every time she had an appointment with the doctors, she would bring donuts. I'm like, it's not going to make the diagnosis any better, Mom. It's not. But she goes, it makes him feel good. And it's like, if I can lighten someone else's load or put a smile on someone's face, you know, life is hard enough, you know. And also, give yourself a break. You know, the world's going to beat you down. Don't beat yourself down. You know, lift yourself up and toot your own horn if you have to. I was taught, you know, it's not right to, you know, brag, or not brag, but, you know, but you got to know your own worth and celebrate that. And I'm just going to sound so cliche.
No, please go with
love
it.
yourself, and because that's how you only can love others, if you are happy or accept yourself. And that was the hard thing for me to figure out. Really, I mean, they're not just words, but to really figure out that philosophy. My mother would tell me that all the time. You can't love anyone till you really love yourself. Like, that's crazy, but it's true.
Well, go and give Tim a big hug and a kiss for me, and say that it's.
I don't know who he is, but I'll hail Tom.
Yes, Tom. Did I say Tim? Tom.
That's okay.
Tom, I'm so sorry. Tom.
No, look, bring it on.
Thank you. Love you. Thank you.
Love you too. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.